All right, here we go. Tonight's daily digit is, this is outrageous, 6,125. That's the number of new regulations and notices the White House posted online in the past 90 days. More than 6,000 new rules and regulations. This country is just, let's be honest, being regulated to death. And I'm not the only one who's noticing. The Competitive Enterprise Institute has been keeping a close eye on all the unnecessary rules coming out of Washington. And tonight, we're going to highlight what they find to be the most outrageous regulations this week. Ryan Young is a fellow in regulatory studies at the Competitive Enterprise Institute and joins us right now. How you doing, Ryan?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on,
All
Andrew.
right, so give it to me. What's the most ridiculous regulation of the week?
Well, the Code of Federal Regulations is where they put all these rules, and it's 169,000 pages long. So there's a lot of weird stuff in there. And one that I dug up has to do with falconry. The federal government has about 13,000 words worth of falconry regulations, how many birds you can own, where you can store them, and just having solved all other problems, I guess they've moved on to falconry now.
You mean literally like this picture that we're showing, that if you want to wear a big leather glove and own a bird of prey, the federal government has 13,000 words regulating that?
That's right. And the states are also in on the action. So this week, a rule that passed was the, what's the agency in charge of it? They devolved...
Pick one.
Good
pick
enough,
one.
Fish and Wildlife Service, whatever it is. But states have policies of their own, and if they meet certain federal requirements, then the federal government will say, okay, we're backing off. We will leave falconry policy to the state of Alaska or Alabama or a few others, 7 in all.
So that basically throws the 10th Amendment out the window. It's not that the states get to pass their own rules and regulations free of the federal government. Essentially, they just have to abide by the federal rules and regulations, just calling them state rules and regulations, even though they're not.
That's exactly right. The rules aren't necessarily lighter. They are probably, in fact, tighter.
You know, how ridiculous, this is, when I say how ridiculous some of these regulations are, that the point of the 10th Amendment was that you couldn't have this central authority that was passing these one-size-fits-all rules and regulations. I mean, if there are environmentalists in the state of California that want to turn off the water and cause themselves a massive shortage of hydration for their crops, well, that's fine. Leave the rest of the states alone. But all these environmentalists go to Washington, they influence the rules and regulations, and then we have a drought across the country.
You know, there's an old saying that if the federal government were put in charge of the Sahara Desert, there would be a shortage of sand within 10 years, and that's not far off.
With these rules and regulations, all 6,125 of them, should we be bracing for what Obamacare is going to bring once this IPAB gets in charge?
Yes, I do. Right now, the best ballpark estimate we have for how much all these regulations cost is $1.8 trillion. And if you think of the federal budget as $3.6, $3.7 trillion, we're talking half that again. The federal government actually costs 50% or so more than most people think it does. So this is a very important issue. And with all these rules coming down the pipeline with the health care bill, and with Dodd-Frank, and who knows what else they'll cook up in the next 4 years, we could be in some trouble here.
How do they think we're going to run an economy with this? I mean, at some point, there's a cycle of diminishing results that, tax that guy and tax that business and get that sector. When eventually things become increasingly unprofitable, there's less going into government and less to redistribute. So these regulations are not just going to kill the oil industry per se. They're going to kill everybody who either uses oil or waits for oil profits to be taxed for social programs.
And regulations also kill innovation. How many products have never been invented because regulations wouldn't allow them to? The benefits, the jobs to be created, the products that people could enjoy that make their lives better, regulation has a huge opportunity cost as well as a huge monetary cost.
All right, the hell with that free market. Thanks, Ryan.